hopper. Cinders and ashes. Smoke too. So do I. Sheezels had broken down. Ari, Bert, and even Salty had ground to a halt too quickly. They were having the bounciest, bumpiest car so hard everything flew into the air. James's face was soon covered in soot. Cole tumbled out of the troubles, but hurtled into a siding. They biffed and fell all over the track. Ashes, cried Thomas as his wheels began to box. It felt very cold and twice as miserable. No, it piled up very into the duck pond. Trucks crossly around the yard. Thomas squeezed lots of steam. Stone was loaded onto the trucks. A big cloud of stone dust whooshed down. The freight car rolled into a levee, poured out everywhere. And a terrible crack. The eggs were breaking, and some of the fish were shaken loose. Water tower fell over, and the roof blew right off Farmer McColl's barn. Suddenly, a great whoosh of sparks lit up the shed, funneled to footplate under a signal, and the tarp flew off. Bling broke. Thomas shot forward. Coco answered top freight cars. It is a magic car freight car, and glided onto Toby's roof. On the tracks. It lifted off the tracks and fluttered onto Percy's flatbed.
He gave them an extra big shunt. The wind howled down the tracks. He gave them an extra big shunt. The wind howled down the tracks. It ripped off roofs and flattened fences. Even blew Gordon's tent away. Then there was trouble. The truck's an extra hard shunt. Paint pots flew into the air and splattered down. He gave him a bump. Soon the diesels and the steamies were biffing and banging and being bumped all over the island. Suddenly, they started to come off the track. Some of them headed straight for the water tower. Crashed down across the runway.
And they all came off the track, biffed and bashed, threw one of the tarps into the air. They spilt their drinks and their donuts went flying. The coach crashed into the lots of rocks came tumbling down. Pat, his wife, and his mother were bounced and bumped inside the carriage, shuddered to a stop. Trouble. But it was too late. It rolled onto the track. There was another loud crash. It was trouble. Then they rolled a bit more. The trucks bumped into the back of Thomas and pushed his way through the barrier. And suddenly the roof collapsed behind him. He biffed into the buffers again, slowly forward along the tracks. And they crashed and smashed through the boards. And the winch broke. The snowbank. Hurry up! Boo! Thomas felt some way and rolled up under the chute himself, very hard. And his boiler bubbled and bounced. and his boiler bubbled and bounced. Inside the passenger car, the picnic hamper burst open, and the narrow gauge controller and Mrs. Percival were juddered and shuddered. The flatbed bumped into the air. The branch snapped, and the bell fell onto his flatbed. Flatbed crashed into the buffers, and then splashed into. Henry's tar wagons were there. Henry was having a terrible time. Aeneas raced right off the track. Sides of the freight cars collapsed. Pipes with a loud crunch. Straight into the back of Toby. Into the buffers. But Thomas raced blew her top. That the hat blew her top, and the top hat blew a happy wishes her Topham hat. Skarloey jumped. His freight cars hit the buffers, and bright white flour flew everywhere.
Oh, shunted more freight cars in one.
And he spluttered sad, was very overgrown. Couldn't stop in time. Coupling came. Flatbed biffed into the sidings. He backed into a stack of roofing slate and smashed. Suddenly, Alfie whisked into Monty, and Monty crashed it off the track. Swung his wrecking ball as hard as he could. A wrecking ball. Ned swung with all his might. Came right up to his footplate. Thomas bravely buffered up to persons tipped out of the freight cars. A set of buffers. Snowslide came down and blocked, and he biffed right dashed into the barrier. Jumped and biffed into his flatbed. Jumped and he biffed cars in surprise. Flour flew up into the air so hard they burst through the buffers, smashed through the oil drums stacked on the wharf, and splashed right under the hopper. Percy was covered in coal from funnel to footplate. All the dusty and dirty, and the branches and bushes covered Toby and Henrietta in leaves. Toby splashed through the puddle. Oh! Clickety-clong, Thomas broke down. A policeman crashed through a snowbank, crashed to the ground. She backfired.
Swung over the deep ravine. Toppled off the track. It smashed into the tower. As the tower crashed to the ground, crashed straight through the block tunnel. Thomas landed in a pool of water, a thick wall of bushes of the hill.
So Thomas reached first, and the billboard flew. And the billboard flew into the. So Thomas rolls of bunting went everywhere. The edge of the water wheel cut. The magnificent water wheel rolled off Edward's foot. Snap! It smashed against the gate. Other couplings. Other couplings. It smashed into Emily with a clang and a prang. The trouble. The track started to sink. Emily was stuck. It burst on the shore. Train smashed into the snow. Thomas bashed straight into Diesel, who came off the rails. With a crash and a bang, Thomas and Diesel smashed straight into them. Bounced off his flat. Big bump. More of the special blocks bounced off his flat. Thomas clanked off the rails. One more. Snap! He crashed into Duncan. He bashed into Rusty's. And with a splash, a sploosh, and a splosh, as a streak of silver their tracks. Gosh! Potato car. Sticky jelly flew in the air and landed all over Tom. With a scrunch and a crunch, Thomas crashed into the bushes. He chuffed too quickly. They clanged and they banged. Hero huffed, the worse he wobbled. More parts splattered and scattered from Hero's engine. Thomas! Freak and a crash. It cracked. Mavis hadn't lined up her freight cars under the hopper. Slate spilled everywhere. The crates had bounced high in the air. They crashed and bashed. They clattered and shattered down to the track all over Farmer McColl's field.
Oh no!
He applied it. Crash. Suddenly, a gust of wind
Answer on the hoist!
hit a big coal. Rain blew the biggest puff of steam he had ever blown. All straight through a very big puddle.
Splish, splash, push! Splish, splash, push! Splish, splash, push!
Spotty and Sir Topham Hatt